Hello and welcome to Art and Photo Time with Anderson. I am going to show you today how to make this lovely representation of both exposure and lighting for our portrait assignment. So I'm starting with this image here. And when I was searching for this image to get a properly sized image to bring into Photoshop and really be able to see what you're doing, you have to go into when you're searching, and I searched for Annie Leibovitz, Jennifer Lawrence, and Jane Fonda. So here's the image that we're looking for. I'm going to go into images. And when I'm here in images, I actually want to go into tools, size, and go to large. And then when I click on this, I can see right away that it's 1000 by 824. So that's a larger size image because I want to be able to zoom in and kind of like look at the image a little bit closer. So that's the image I'm going to save and open up. So here it is, okay. So now what I want to do is I am going to take all these layers and just get rid of them because I want it to look exactly how it looks when you guys open it. So here it is, and I am going to start by checking the image size. I already did that. Now I'm going to increase the canvas size. So in here, not image size, I'm going to increase the canvas size. And I don't care about the resolution right now. I just want to add about roughly anywhere from 2 to 5 inches. And I'm just kind of rounding up there. I click OK, and what that does is that makes it so that I have this area to put a border. So I need something to go there. These little checkerboards, those stand for transparency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to this little tab, and it says create a new layer. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to move that layer to the background because I'm going to fill that layer with black. And this is where I have my little color picker here. These are the default colors. I'm going to click on black and white. I'm going to click on this guy. Don't use the gradient tool, use the paint bucket tool. And I'm going to drop a layer of paint. Now layers in Photoshop are like panes of glass. Whatever's on one, I can kind of click this eyeball on and off. So now this black layer is actually behind this picture. And I definitely want it there for a couple of different reasons, which we'll get to a little bit later. So now, like we did in our previously to create an exposure triangle, we're going to use a vector to create an exposure triangle. Here it is right here. It's the shape tool. I'm going to go to polygon tool. I'm going to make sure that this is on path. Depending on the version of Photoshop you're using, there could be two little buttons right next to each other. The empty looking one is the path one. The full looking one is the shape one. So we want to be on path. Here in sides, I want 3 because a triangle is basically a polygon with 3 sides. And then I should be able to, I think I should be able to start at the top, and I'm going to hold down Shift. Oh, it's an upside down triangle. Okay, I'm actually going to hit delete. So I'm going to start at the bottom and hold down Shift. And then I'm going to hold down my space bar. And when I hold down my space bar, I can adjust where the triangle actually is. Holding down Shift makes the bottom nice and straight, which I like. Okay, so there we go. Now, right away, before clicking on anything else, you want to go to Layer, Vector Mask, Current Path. Layer, Vector Mask, Current Path. Now it's grayed out because we already did it. The next step you want to do is I actually want to flatten out this vector mask because I want to do something a little bit different with this one around. I want to flatten it out into a layer mask. So now I want to go to Layer, Rasterize, Vector Mask. Now, if you'll see here, I have these two I have these two little items where I've got, here's my image, and if I click on that, the little frame will go on my image, and here's my layer mask. It'll go on my layer mask. Let me see if I can actually, panel options. Here we go. I'm going to make my panel just a little bit bigger there so you guys can see it. Here's my layer mask. And what it is everything in white is showing through and everything in black is being masked out, literally like you would put a mask on your face, right? So I'm going to come here now and I want to duplicate this layer. I want two layers. I'm going to drag it to this little guy right here. Be careful you don't throw it away. Create a new layer. Now I have two of these layers. You can always click on the eye to kind of check that. I'm going to click on the layer mask, on the layer mask of the top layer here, and I'm going to go option click, and that's what I see. That's what the actual layer is, so I could see the layer. I just click right back here on the eye if I want to see the whole thing. So I option click, image, adjustments, invert. That's basically what it is. I'm going to click back on the eye. Now I see the whole picture because this one's masking the center, that one's masking the outside. And now what I want to do is I want to take this top layer and I'm going to pump the opacity down on that. So this opacity slider. I'm going to at about 55 or 60 right there. So now that I've done that, I have my little exposure triangle, but I also have the rest of the image, some of the rest of the parts of the image in there. Like for example, this little border right here, I'm actually going to refer to this later when I am explaining how the image is set up. I'm going to use that border as an example as my justification for Aperture, because you do have to have a justification for why you think all of these are what they are. So now I'm going to go to T, the T tool, and that's text. It's right here. Anytime I scroll over a tool in Photoshop, it will appear, which is cool. And I have my most recently used brushes up here. Here's my font color is right there. So since I'm typing on mostly black, I'm going to actually go with a white font. And I'm going to type the artist, Annie Leibovitz. I don't love this font as much as I like the other one I used. And right up here, you can come down and you can make it bigger, or you can kind of just hover your mouse over it and make it bigger like that. If I move my cursor down, it turns into a little move tool. But I can also go here to the actual move tool, and then I have to be on that layer, and then I can move that layer about like that. So that's one layer of text. I want another layer of text right now, and that's to give it a title. I'm going to choose a little bit different font here. I'm going to go into, here we go. This looks like a very sort of like explanatory type font, and I'll put in Jennifer Lawrence and Jane Fonda for Vanity Fair. Okay, and I kind of click there. Now I want these two layers to be next to each other and be kind of aligned, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the best I can to line it up. Right now I have guides turned on. That's not possible in every single item you'll use, but if it's turned on, it can be helpful. So you don't need to worry about that. You can just eyeball it. Select both of these, come down here and hit link. Now once you've hit link, you can move those layers about like that, okay? So Annie Leibovitz, Jennifer Lawrence, and Jane Fonda for Vanity Fair. And then you can give it a little title, exposure triangle, etc. So now this is my little exposure triangle. So let's actually do that right now. We'll go here, return. Oh, see, that text tool is kind of funny like that. It'll always make a new layer. So I'm kind of glad it did that. You just really, it's better if you want to do something in a piece of text you've previously typed in, if you just click in the middle. And I'm going to type exposure triangle and lighting analysis. Okay. So, and that's better that it's there because now all these layers are kind of linked, and depending upon where it is, I can move it around. I like it right up there. So now I'm going to use my text tool again, and just to make sure that it does make a new layer, I'm going to go to T for my text tool, and I'm going to pick these different sides. So let's start with the bottom to make it easy, and I'm going to say ISO, but I'm going to use a little bit different font for fun. I'm going to come in here to, I wanted to use typewriter, there it is. So my guess is that the ISO is about, I don't know, I think it's 400. It might be 640, but I'm gonna go with 400 because I would imagine that the image quality would be pretty important to the infamous Annie Leibovitz. So there we go, I got that one. Okay, now the rest I want to go along the sides here. So I actually I'm gonna kind of deciding where to put my aperture. So I'm gonna put F. So I'll put AV or F stop is, I think it's 5.6. And I think it's 5.6 because I can see the edge of this background in focus as well as here is in focus. And if I click here and I actually zoom in, I can see that how much of the image is in focus, and I'm just, well, actually there's a little bit more blur to me there. So I'm guessing that it's either 5.6 or 4. But that's, so again, if I want to retype the text, I don't know what the half stop is. The half stop might be 3 point something. So I'm gonna go with 4. Okay, now that I've done that, I want to actually take this layer and I'm gonna go to Edit, Free Transform, and it brings up this little box. And then with this little box, I can transform the image so that I can make it so that it goes along like that. Now the cool part is if I sit here and I decide, you know what, I really need to write out the word aperture. You know, students just need to learn what the terms are, the proper terms are. I can, even though I've transformed it, I can actually go back and I can highlight it. So I'm going to write out the word aperture, but I'm going to make it a little smaller so it's not just totally overwhelming. And I like the angle of my text, but I just want to move it a little bit. Okay, so there it is. So now I'm going to just click on something else and then go to T right here and shutter or TV. I am going to guess that she was using an 85mm lens. It's a good portrait lens. It's just a guess. So your shutter then has to be at least that. It has to be at least the number. It has to match the number or double the number of your lens focal length to avoid camera shake. So I just kind of happen to know that. So I'm going to guess that the shutter is 201/250. And also, you know, she doesn't know her models necessarily. Like, she wants to make sure that there's no movement or model shake. So that's my guess on what her shutter speed would be. Okay, and so then I'm going to hit return to just go ahead and apply that transformation. And again, if I wanted to make these words smaller, I could just highlight that and I could actually change this font in there a little bit. Now what I want to do is label the lighting that I see. So I want to label both the light and the shadows. So I'm going to come in here to the brush tool. In the brush tool, I'm going to make the size 8 pixels is good. The hardness of the brush tool, I'm going to make it 100%. That means it's going to be just like a nice, clean line. I guess you could kind of get creative with some of the options, but I think the 8 or 10 pixels is good. Now, to do this, you actually have to create a new blank layer. So then, now that I have my brush tool, it'll end up with kind of a cool effect to it. Now that I have my brush tool, I'm going to click. Oh, I'm still on white. Okay, so I want to make sure. So instead of white, I'm actually coming to my color picker over here, and I'm going to go into like a nice like golden color, because there we go. And it looks like maybe 10 pixels is a little too big. So I'm going to pump that down to 7. And I'm going to click up here, and then I'm going to hold shift. You see, even though my screen moved a little bit, it's going to make a line like that. Then I'm going to click and line. Oh, I don't like that. Just edit, undo. Click and line, click and line. And what I'm doing is I'm describing the directional quality of the light. And so since I have my kind of cool brush tool, I'm also going to do it here to the cheek, because I'm going to talk about both the cheek and the eye. Click. And I'm going to talk about those qualities of the light. And I could, if I really wanted to, I could also do, I could maybe come here and I could do like this. I could map out where I see the triangle of light on her. Or I could map out where on her forehead it is. And it's like that highlight all the way down along the nose. So now that I'm on my yellow brush tool, I'm going to come back into my text, and I'm going to put lighting. I'm just holding down shift, excuse me, space bar. So I'm gonna say lighting high, 45 degree and front. Okay, and then I'm gonna type underneath that window. I'm gonna explain that in more detail why later on, but then here my text, see, you have all these options. A lot of it's similar to Word, center text, left text. So here, if I do left text, I can go like this. I can kind of decide if I want to make it bigger, smaller, etc. Now, you guessed it, I'm going to come back to this layer number 2 here. And this is my layer, this layer. It's just the arrows. So now I'm going to switch these colors. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to find a nice sort of like purpley blue color, and I'm going to go to my brush tool, which is right here. Okay, brush tool. And I'm going to actually, you guessed it, describe the shadows. So I'm going to click and hold shift. Actually, I don't like that, so I'm going to do edit, undo. I'm going to click and hold shift here. There, click and shift. Okay. And then I covered up a little bit of the shadows on her face, but there are some kind of like on her nose here to this side. But there's also some in the middle here. So I think I'm going to do that as well. Click. Okay, so there. And I'm going to talk about the shadows in between them, and that's part of how I'm going to prove that it is frontal lighting, because there's not like a harsh shadow in between them, because Jane Fonda here would be blocking the light. If it was side lighting, then she would be blocking the light. So I clicked on my text tool. I have my nice purple color. I say shadows are subtle. So that's the quality. You can use whatever words you want to describe it. So shadows are subtle. There's it's diffuse. I'm just going to say illuminated, and then in my text I'm going to explain that a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and select this what I've done right here, the font, and change the color a little bit because I just don't feel like it's standing out. But I still like that my shadow color is in like blue type color and that my lighting is in like a yellow type color. So even though I've got the arrows going in the two different directions, the lighting is a little bit more frontal, but I'm going to explain that later in a document. So here is how to put together an exposure triangle and lighting analysis. Thanks for watching. Good luck.